You've got your pricing, you've got the packaging, how you position, and how do you productize this service that you're offering so people can buy that from you?
People right now who are looking for work, and a lot of those people who are looking for work in conversations, a lot of them are approaching companies at a fractional level because companies they're not investing as heavily in areas like HR.
And I think too many times we assume what people want without asking them. And so it's really about figuring out, how does your client want to work? And how can you come up with something that is configurable, not customized?
I think that mindset of what even is sales is something that I think if you're going to look to go fractional, if you're going to look to leverage your network, if you're going to look to leverage your experience, you have to get that narrative of sales being this like transactional boogeyman.
Joel Lalgee and Marcus Sawyer welcome you to AI in Recruiting, the show where they break down how AI is transforming hiring, leadership, and the future of work. Expect real talk, smart tools, and bold conversations with the people shaping what's next. Let's get into it.
Welcome to AI in Recruiting. I am your co-host, Joel Lalgee, and I have with us, as always, Marcus Sawyer. Marcus, how are you? How's everything in your world?
Yeah, I'm doing well. We're getting to the tail end of the year. So
can't believe it.
Yeah.
Flown by.
Blown by, right? I say time flies when you're having
recruiting fun. AI
yeah,
fun.
Time
AI.
just flies, right? Whether it's fun or not. So all good. I'm excited to have this discussion and conversation today because I've been speaking to a lot of business leaders and owners over the last month or so.
Yeah.
So I think that everyone's starting to prepare for 2026.
Yeah. What are of those conversations you've been having? You know, what's kind of the word on the street from business leaders approaching this new year?
Look, I think as we dive right into it, what we'll discuss is the level of uncertainty that there has been in 2025 for various reasons.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's trying to figure out where they fit in the ecosystem that they're trying to serve and how they deliver. And then outside of it, there's this small change that's happening that is forcing people to transform, which is called AI, right? Which is what we're going to talk about as well. And how do you bring that into your practice and your organization where it's going to be effective? Because everyone's seeing it happen. It's happening in the recruiting industry. It's happening in the consulting and the service industry at different levels. And one of the things I was thinking about earlier was it's not just happening for you to innovate for yourself. Your customers are now starting to innovate and the expectations are evolving as well, meaning that if they're not hiring the same types of folks that they were hiring before and you're a recruiting firm or even a consultant like working in those areas, that changes what you should be offering. So I think everybody's trying to figure out what the offer should be moving forward.
100%. Yeah, I know there's a lot more talk going into 2026 for a lot of it's like emerging market, which I think has been growing over the last few years, but definitely coming into 2026, a lot more of this fractional consulting, a lot more people who have maybe been in corporate America for a decade or more, looking at how do I launch my solo business, and on top of that, how do we incorporate AI into what I offer, how I run my business, and ultimately serve clients as well. So I think it's an exciting conversation.
Yeah, just last week, I got a chance to speak at the Solo Summit, which was a conference that was online. There's 4,000 solopreneurs.
Wow.
And it was hosted by a company called Lettuce that we partner with. So shout out to Lettuce. They do some really interesting things around tax and the back office on the finance side. And I got a ton of responses following because we're talking about strategic partnerships and developing strategic partnerships. And a lot of people are still trying to figure out how they can get clients. So that's something that we're actually serving a lot of solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and small businesses with. And in particular, there was a guy that I spoke to and he'd reached out. I got a note on LinkedIn. I think I got about 30 messages and I was responding to them and I took a few calls. And this guy, he was the CIO of one of the largest automakers in the United States and globally. And then he was also the CIO of a large food company, which FMCG that everyone would know. And now he's gone out on his own to set up his business. So he's advising startups. So we were having a conversation as a follow-up just around how you set up that business, what you do. And he has a lot of technical knowledge, a lot of expertise and deep, deep insights. But he's just finding it hard to get the name out there and have people aware. And when you're in a big corporate, that's done for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So you don't have to do it. Like, you know who you're working with and how you, so even at that level. And then I spoke to somebody else who is running go-to-market strategy. She's been at one of the largest e-commerce companies that existed, a big, large furniture company as well. Similar things. She's got an amazing set of expertise. And the question is like, how do you get that out there? How do you package that up? What is your offering? So I've been thinking about 3 Ps. I always have the Ps, but it's like pricing, packaging, and positioning. And I think in this fractional world, what you actually want to do, which is the 4th P, is productize. So you've got your pricing, you've got the packaging, how you position, and how do you productize this service that you're offering so people can buy that from you?
100%. And we were talking about this right before online. Obviously, we're talking to a lot of recruiters, a lot of people who are offering recruiting services, and maybe you're an internal recruiter, maybe you're an agency recruiter that's going to work for yourself. And what I've seen in the recruitment world is people fall into offering contingent or retained. Like
Sure.
the two things that we all know. But there's so many more things, and there's so many more packages and products that you can actually offer and ways to serve people. So I'd be curious, like, just from a from a process standpoint, or like a thought process standpoint, when you're looking to productize and kind of figure out, how you package things up, like how do you start? Like, what do you just go to the market and see what's out there? You have conversations? Like, how would you approach that?
Yeah, look, I think that there's a few ways you can do it. Here are a couple of examples of things that I've seen are scalable and repeatable. So if you are offering a service, let's say it's a recruiting service, and you gave a couple of examples of the way that you could recruit. It could be contained, it could be retained, or it could be contingent. And contained is something that...
Yeah, it's like a mix of both, right?
Yeah, we used to use that at EQ when we had our business, and it was like, look, you'll take a little bit up front.
Yeah.
And then knowing that you've got the hiring manager's ear, you can then deliver on it. So you've kind of got somewhat exclusivity, or at least a good shot.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things is that you want to be able to innovate with your packaging and your pricing, but you don't want to confuse the market. And I think that's the challenging balance. So one of the things that you can do is look at what you've sold historically. And I like to think of it as a menu item. We actually just released the EQ menu recently. And if you look at something that's on the menu, these might be, you've got the starters, the mains, and the dessert. Within that, how many services do you think that you're selling? Okay, how many different dishes? So you come up with these dishes, and those dishes could look like, as we were talking about, it could be retained, it could be contained, and then it might be contingent. But as part of that, you might have a starter. Maybe that starter is resume rewriting.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe the dessert is coaching. And if you can provide a selection of services that your customers can interact with, maybe they buy now or they know someone else that will buy, but what they'll decide is, what do they need during this point in time? Do they need a main, starter, and a dessert, or do they need just the main? And I think too many times, like, we assume what people want without asking them. And so it's really about figuring out, how does your client want to work? And how can you come up with something that is configurable, not customized, configurable, because that allows you to scale, that serves their need and serves their purpose, but allows you to deliver a similar service to someone else. And then how do you present that? Right? So those are some of the steps that you need to go through in order to figure out the pricing, packaging, positioning, in order to productize.
Yeah, I love that. What's your thought in terms of, I know a big challenge, right? When you launch a business, the actual selling, right? And it's different, I think, when you're selling behind a brand, like we already kind of talked about. Like if you're working for a brand that's reputable and kind of has everything figured out, has its own reputation, you're selling, and then you sell for yourself. Like, what's the best approach, or like what's the approach, like especially like when you're starting and you're kind of researching, like how do you approach those sales conversations? Is it more, I guess, pitching, you listening? Like how do you approach those types of conversations? And do you even approach them as sales conversation? Are you more, hey, I want to network, I want to find out what you're up to? Like how do you kind of position those conversations?
It depends on the path that the conversation has arrived on your desk or on their desk, right? So there's a difference between like a super warm referral is like, hey, you should talk to Joel around social media.
Yeah.
That's slightly different to you outreaching, and then you're making an assumption. I think we can talk maybe a little bit about outreach, but if you're reaching out to someone, there should be a good reason for you to reach out to them that is related to them and not related to you. It's got nothing to do with you. No one cares about your service. No one cares about your product. They care about their problem. And if you're reaching out to someone, you should have some insight or information in terms of like, what is the problem that they are trying to solve? And I'll give you a couple of examples, right? And we used to do this all the time when we were looking for customers. If you see someone has a job advertised, there's a good chance that they're hiring. Okay. That's like standard, and people hit up, and then loads of people are getting hit up by recruiters, and they'll say non-solicited. Now, if you've seen a news article, which is some of the precision data that we provide, and you can see that a company's about to expand into a new market, and you can be first to offer an insight into how they can expand, that's a different pitch. That is completely different saying, hey, there's a job here, let me transact and let me help you. So it's really figuring out like how you can be strategic and add strategic value to your customers so they're aware of what you do. Your menu of services should fulfill a need. I heard this years ago. Maybe we talked about it in this podcast or maybe on a live. I'll ask you, do you know what purpose a McDonald's milkshake serves?
No, a tasty treat to wash down the Big Mac with.
Could be. There was a study that was done on it, and do you know why that? Could you have a guess on like why it's so thick?
Maybe to get you to buy another drink. I don't know.
Okay, so McDonald's milkshake. I learned this in like a MBA class like years ago. Was set up for truck drivers, and the reason it was so thick was as they started to pull over and they would be on the side, it would allow them to have it in a certain amount of time, so it would kill time for them. And so the purpose was it was tasty, in like delicious, people want it, but then it would like kill like 15-20 minutes. And they realized that by understanding what purpose it would solve, because you could, if you're thirsty, the best thing for you to have is some water.
Yeah.
Right. If you're, let's say like you just want some sugar, you might just have a fizzy drink. But they realized why people were coming in, and they were literally there sloping, maybe at the time on their phone or what have you, but it served a specific purpose at a point in time. And I think when you think about packaging, timing is super underrated. Thinking about when people are going to need your product or your service. We know that we work with certain businesses at a certain point in time based on the need that they have. Maybe they have just started to think about the ideation of their business, or they want to start growing and scaling it. So there's a point in time, but their website doesn't look super professional. So we could help them with that. Okay, now you've got the website done, then what? You're getting some traffic to it. How do you capture it? How do you get the value from it? You got the traffic, but you might need more specific traffic. So it's really understanding where your customers are in that point in time. And that's where I go back to somebody's opening a new office or opening a new location. What do they need in order to deliver on that initiative? So think about your customers' initiatives, and then think about the packaging, pricing, and positioning that you can provide, that you can productize to help them along their journey.
How can, obviously you're building and helping a lot of businesses that are, in this kind of level. What are some of the ways that, particularly in business development and looking up things like the news and just kind of understanding businesses. How can AI help with that? I think a lot of people are always curious of like, how can you implement AI to kind of scale some of this? Because there's obviously lots of things going on at the same time. Like I guess, how do you use AI within your business to identify those needs at scale?
Yeah, so we actually take the reverse approach, and we haven't made any outbound requests. Our outbounds are based on our network. And so the first thing we do is our subscribers, I think it was like 63,000 last time I checked, was taking the data that we initially have and enriching that information. So that's one thing that we use AI for. So you might know something about someone, like you might know what social network they're, might know their job title, but you don't know everything that's going on.
Yeah.
So we enrich a profile with more information. It could be a company, it could be an individual, and a company. Then when we then send messaging out, and when I say it's inbound, or like because we have to send something at some point, right?
Yeah.
Then it can be very specific to their needs, or at least give them an overview of what they're interested. So enriching is a really big part of it. If you know more about somebody, it's like when you do discovery in a call, if you know something more about someone, you are able to serve their need better. If you go to the doctors, and the doctor could be great, but they might specialize in a certain area. They could specialize in podiatry, they could specialize in oncology, whatever it is. But if you don't have that challenge, that's the wrong doctor to go to. And the doctor only knows by asking you questions or looking at your record. So how do you build up a profile of the people that you want to target? And how do you put in information that is going to be useful for them to interact with or engage with, whether that is pricing, packaging, or it's a menu of services? And again, it's like, look, there's no point in trying to sell people beef burgers if they're vegetarian.
Yeah, 100%.
So do you know your audience? Is the first thing. So what have you been seeing in the market? Because you obviously talk to a lot of folks as well, and we obviously had this conversation around fractional, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But tell me a bit more about what you're hearing from folks who are trying to spin up fractional practices and where the challenges are, or even opportunities.
I think the opportunities are looking at, the types of companies that are growing right now, which, I mean, there's still a market for companies that just gotten funding and they're looking to grow. They're looking to expand their sales teams, for example. I think there's markets like healthcare and construction. Those are strong markets to be in. And I just experienced this myself, kind of like what you said, where, if the market's not there, no amount of activity is going to, stimulate a market that's just not a strong market, right? And I kind of experienced that a little bit in terms of just exploring like HR executive search. There's a lot of talented HR people right now who are looking for work, and a lot of those people who are looking for work in conversations, a lot of them are approaching companies at a fractional level because companies just, they're not as investing as heavily in areas like HR and TA. So kind of just get going off of what you just said. I think it's really important to think about, just realistically, is the market that I'm approaching and targeting, like, is there just a baseline need? Are they struggling to find people because there's not a talent base, or is it a growing industry? Again, experiencing this myself, I think you can have a lot of activity, you can have a lot of conversations, but at the end of the day, if the need's not there, it's almost like it's just starting from the wrong place. So I think really thinking that out is crucial. Well, I think the biggest challenge that I've seen for people who are looking to go fractional, looking to kind of do their own thing, I think there's a fear of how to approach sales conversations. And one of the most common things I would hear from people is, oh, it feels weird asking people for money, or, asking for the sale almost. And I'd be curious to get your take on this, because I know that you're a solution provider, right? So you seek to understand problems and solve solutions, or bring solutions to the table. But I think that mindset of what even is sales is something that I think if you're going to look to go fractional, if you're going to look to leverage your network, if you're going to look to leverage your experience, you have to get that narrative of this of sales being this like transactional boogeyman that you just don't want to do because you have an idea of what it is, and flip it on, hey, I want to understand your problems, what's keeping you up at night, can I provide some solutions, or can I introduce you to somebody, and start thinking about how you actually are going to provide solutions to real world problems. I think that's a big challenge I see with a lot of people. A lot of experience, a lot of network, a lot of value that they can bring, but this kind of irrational, no, I don't want to say irrational, but just a fear of transitioning into a quote unquote sales type mentality.
Yeah. So there's a few things there to unpack. And one of the things I would say is I actually think that it's a misconception that there isn't a market need for a service. I don't believe that. And I'll tell you why.
So like going back to that HR conversation.
Yeah, there's a need. Definitely. You just haven't found it. If I run a marathon,
yeah,
at the end of a marathon, what do I need?
You need a water and you need to sit down an ice bath.
Amazing, right?
I only know that because I ran a marathon once. But
oh, congrats. If I'm at an event and let's say it's a birthday, what's the one thing that people always eat at a birthday?
It's cake.
Okay. Do I want that after a marathon?
No.
Okay. People are trying to sell cake to marathon runners. And so the point in time is underestimated. If you go into your kitchen, have you got one of those fridges where you can get the water from the fridge? I got one of those. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
How much does that cost you, that water?
And I have to look at the water bill.
Roughly?
Probably a couple cents.
Couple cents, okay.
Maybe.
When you're in an airport, I was in Mexico, I was in Cabo, I was leaving Cabo. Bottle of water cost me $20.
I believe it.
It was
I saw you buy a $20 bottle of water in Vegas.
It was like 90 degrees.
Yeah.
So it was hot.
Yeah.
I bought it reluctantly because I didn't realize. Yeah. But there's a point in time, same commodity.
Yeah.
Different point in time. Different point for me, same person. You can eat cake, right? And you can drink water. But meeting people where they are and at the point in time is the hard thing, right? So out of the 9 billion people that are on this earth, and let's say, I don't know what the numbers are, but I estimate it's probably like a 2 billion population that are working, maybe 1 billion or so, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
And we can look those numbers up. There are people that want your service and they want it at a certain point in time, and you just haven't found them. And there are people that know how to find those people over and over again.
Yeah.
And typically it's through referrals and it's through networks. There's somebody who's woken up right now that needs executive search for HR right now. And what they are looking for is they're looking for someone that they can trust. And so how do you pop up in those environments at that right point in time with the right solution? And people say, and this happened to us recently, which I've been, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about this. And then you reached out. How can you become that? We built 9 websites last week. And out of those, and we sent out a note to our community. And out of those inbound, everybody said, I was just thinking about redoing our website. And so how do you do that on an ongoing basis? You've got to be top of mind and tip of tongue. And so there's value in longevity. There's value in doing the same thing for a long period of time, people knowing you and being able to refer you. And so don't underestimate that equity that you build, that social capital that you build over a long period of time just by being there. And if you don't want to stick to a particular product, that's okay. Stick to a space.
Yeah.
And then in that space, if you're in the restaurant space or you're in the food space, you've got a series of offerings, starter, main, dessert, the cake, and water. You're going to sell water as well. And then people know what to come to you for. But I think to your point at the start, it's like either you want this or you want that. And it's too canned for those buyers. And they don't think of you at another moment where you weren't expecting it because your menu is it's not clear, it's not positioned right, it's not priced accordingly, and it's not something that people want to share. If you go to a great restaurant and you love it, you're going to tell loads of people about it. Make your service shareable.
I love it because I like to relate things back to content, and that's the content that does the best. It's the content that's, you have that little share button or the little repost. That's how with content, you got to think, would I share this with someone? So it's that same idea. I love that.
Yeah. So you want to build shareable services, shareable, scalable services. If If you build shareable, scalable services, you will have an influx of customers. So, and then going back to that, so shareable services that are scalable will sell. And so that you're not, so go back to your other point, so you're not really going out and selling. What you're doing is you are putting your stall out, right? So if you're a market, if you go to a marketplace and you're in a physical market, you're not there trying to sell. My uncle, he sells vintage pens like from the 1900s. And he sells online, and he also sells at markets and events. When you go to an event, you have your booth. If your booth is attractive and people are interested, they come to you. So it's a conversation.
Yeah.
To turn the sales into conversations where you add value, and at the end of it, you ask, by the way, if there's anybody you think might be interested in what we're doing, let me know. It'd be amazing, and I'll do the same for you. Because everyone's selling something.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you approach it in a way where you get onto a level with those folks and you're not thinking about selling your product? You're genuinely thinking about helping those people and what value you can provide. Too many salespeople think about selling the product versus helping someone solve the problem.
I love that.
Right? So it's like, and in order to solve a problem, you need to be able to prescribe. So we need less salespeople and more doctors, because the doctor's there to figure out what's going on.
Any advice in terms of just like, I actually think this could be great for just like practical advice, but like when you're on a call with someone you just met, how do you get to that point? Because obviously there's a trust level there for even people to share problems that they have. Like, do you have any kind of go-tos for just how you approach that in a conversation? Like, do you have any kind of probing questions that you're like, this is a good question I always ask?
So, and we can get very specific. I do think it's less about tactics and people don't always want to hear. It's more about situational awareness and mindset. So if I have a call with you, depending on how that call has arrived, if you have reached out to me, so we'll get some inbound and I'll start the call and I may say something along the lines of, I want to make sure that we use this time effectively for you. Are there some things that are top of mind in your business at the moment that you want to discuss? And if you've reached out to someone, that can be a little bit invasive. If I'm reaching out to someone, what is useful is you giving someone value, but not assuming that you're giving them value. And you may say something, if you're targeting let's say a CMO, and I'll give two variations of CMOs, because it could be a chief marketing officer or a chief medical officer, and you may want to work with them. One of the things that you might do is you may share some informational insights in their industry and say, hey, look, I've been working with a few CMOs recently. This is what I've noticed is going on in the market based on salaries or trends, and it's getting easier or more difficult to hire UX or UI folks. Just thought I'd let you know because I saw that you're in that industry. What are you working on at the moment? So you give someone the value, then you ask a question. So I think the approach is always think about giving value first, or you're inviting someone to something or something else. So with another CMO, a chief medical officer, they may care about clinical trials, or they might care about the ability for drug approvals to go through. It's like, oh, I saw this thing on the FDA. You've probably seen this already, and it might come out 30 seconds ago. Just wanted to share this with you as it might be of interest. We're working with a lot of people in this space. So giving people value in that first interaction, I think, is absolutely key.
I think that's magic. And that's definitely something you can be, I think you should be using AI for that in terms of, do you think it's unacceptable now to go into a call and not know like anything? Like, I just feel even from like an interview standpoint, right? Like whatever kind of context you're in, you should be going in with some knowledge. It just seems like that'd be like a baseline expectation now.
Do you know what I found interesting? I was talking to somebody the other day. They worked for a large recruiting firm for many years as an agency side. They went in-house. They're setting up their own practice. They are struggling to get customers. And one of the first things I had tried to remind them of is that you helping people get opportunities when you provide jobs. And so you sometimes have to convince people why that's an interesting opportunity. But also as a recruiter, what you should really be good at is asking questions in a non-invasive way. And I think that then drives the tone of the discussion so people feel comfortable. How do you start an intake call with a client?
You got to baseline know what market they're in, like you said, some of the stuff you said about like some of the big projects and initiatives that they're in. I think you're already going with a baseline understanding of what the what the position is. Maybe I have a short list of candidates. But as far as the conversation goes, I'm usually like, hey, I've got the job description here. I'm trying to delve into like what's off the job description that I need to know. So like background on the role, why the role's open, those types of things. But I'm going in asking a lot of open-ended questions.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to, at the same time, to your point, provide value because I'm trying to build trust in that call. Like I don't want to just it be like a checklist of, so tell me about this, and that. I'm trying to provide value and understand their needs and at the same time be able to provide value so they know and trust me. So when I start to send over candidates, they're like, okay, great. Yeah, this person looks good. I trust your judgment because you built trust with me in this conversation that we've had. And I think you do that with the right intel, asking the right questions, but then also knowing just how to interject market intel that maybe they don't know because they're focused on their job, their team. They're not necessarily having the same conversations that you're having in the marketplace.
Yeah, look, be the eyes and ears for your customer. They feel like you understand them. They're more likely to give you more information that will help you on the next call conversation, whether it's with them or with someone else.
Yeah.
And then also spot patterns. If you're in a certain market and let's say you're focused on UX or you're focused on chief medical officer, there are things that you're going to know that they won't know because you've spoken to 3 or 4 other people. So have conversations, interview people. Right? If you're in a recruiting space and you're trying to figure out how to help people get access to opportunities, but you also need customers, you may want to, what we used to do, like we would basically help senior level folks get jobs, but then they also became clients. And so you build a relationship when you help someone do something. So if you have a skill where you know you can help someone, you might do some stuff pro bono. Right, even with some of the websites, like the first like 9 that we just done them for people. I mean, even with you, right? Like we just sent you links, you had no idea. It's like here's the site.
Yeah.
And so then that changes reactions. Like if I said to you, Joel, like, I know we know each other, but do you want me to redo your website? You'd probably, it's okay. Right?
100%.
Right, but then you had no idea. Sent you the site, it's redone. You're like changes the conversation. So you've got to be willing to invest up front, in order to basically get to what you would like to get to in the end. What are you investing in the conversation, and how many times are you investing in your customers in order to get what you would like in the end? So, pricing, packaging, positioning. Think of services that are scalable and provide that solution as we talked about so you don't have to sell.
I love that. So I know we talked earlier about the community. I know we're running up to time on time here. I'm curious where for the community, where can people join if they're already part of the community? What are some of the things that people can look for in terms of like even just how to introduce like a menu into their own business, or how to do some of this stuff with the websites as well?
Yeah, look, so if anybody's interested in joining a community, and I made a mistake, I think I've mentioned before, I'd started to try and charge for the community. And so now it's free again. So anyone can join who's in the industry. We'll do some light vetting, but it's really to give people access. So we're at 63,000. You can find it on Substack or on our website, eq.app. We've just launched a new menu of services which you can find on eq.app to learn more about us. But we're also creating menus for our clients as well, and their website. So if anybody's interested and you hear this, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll do my best to respond. But also go to eq.app, and then we'll go from there. And then how about you, Joel? Tell the audience what you've been doing and maybe some of those that they can interact with you.
Yeah, I just say just always go to LinkedIn, Joel Lalgee, Lalgee. And also check out the podcast as well. That's still running as well. It's called Recruiting is No Joke. So little different, a different feel to this podcast, which is obviously AI and recruiting. It's just more kind of like people's stories within the space.
Nice.
But yeah, check out both of those, and I'd love to connect. And if you listen to this podcast and if you're thinking about your website, I highly recommend taking a look, because I think my website went from like 0 to 100 in record time. It looks amazing. So I'm excited to roll that out as well.
All right. Talk to everyone soon. Thanks for listening.
See you guys.
If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in your network, your team, your boss, or that recruiter still stuck in 2015. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss what's next in hiring and AI. Until next time.